and bring on Harold Bone, Rockton Roscoe-News, and go ahead and bring on my other partner, Matt Trowbridge, Rockford Register Star. Guys, what's happening? How you doing?
Good. It's former Rockford Register Star, though. I'm retired now.
Former Rockford Register.
Okay.
I got to Matt. I got to get that correct. I apologize.
The legendary.
How about if I put my feet up on the table and get a picture of that? Then you can get it. Then you can figure it out.
I like it.
There you go. There you go.
I got my feet up there. Then you'll figure out. Hey, he's just kicking back.
Oh, he's just kicking back. You just Matt. As the young folks say, you just chilling. You just chilling at the house.
Hey, guys, before we go to our next game,
what's up?
Hey, before we go to our next game, I just wanted to say something. You mentioned that there's 20 penalties in that East Boylan game, and Auburn has had 29 penalties on it in 2 games. And boy, whether it's watching NFL games or high school games, I just think penalties have gone through the roof the last 4 or 5 years, and so many of them are kind of picayune penalties. I don't know what you guys think, but I just think there's too many flags thrown nowadays in football.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It was ugly. First half, second half. Like I said in what I prefaced with in my opening. Boylan got hot. But they got hot late. And as I just stated, they can't do that against quality teams. I don't think East is really a quality team. They have too many things to correct over there at East before I can consider East a team that can actually compete in this conference, with the big dogs, with the Hononegahs, with the Harlems, with the Belvedere North. So, but I think what Boylan needs to do, they just need to minimize the penalties, make plays when they need to make plays, don't shoot yourselves in the foot, and just execute offensively, because I think they do have one of the better offenses in our conference. But again, they didn't display that in the first half. And again, playing against a team like a Hononegah or a Belvedere North come here in the next 3 or 4 weeks, they have to be able to clean those things up. Otherwise, it could be a long bus ride home for the Titans. Guys,
yeah, absolutely, guys.
Go ahead,
Matt, real quickly regarding the penalties. I made note of that at the couple of games that I've been at as well. It seems as though they're calling more pre-snap penalties than they have in the last couple of years. Guys aren't lining up correctly. They're too far off the ball, or they're not lined up correctly on the line at the end of the line of scrimmage. Maybe the offensive linemen are back just a little bit. At least last week's game that we'll talk about here in a second, I did see a few more of those pre-snap penalties, and I know I did have the chance to speak with one of the officials off the record, of course, as everything is with an official. He talked about the fact that they stress that they're getting that from the IHSA, that they want to stop some of those pre-snap penalties from occurring because they feel like it gives the team an advantage. So I can see now 29 penalties. That's an enormous number. I don't know what an average high school game has. I assume it's somewhere around 10 or 12, but 29 for between 2 games for one team is a huge number, and I assume Auburn's going to work on that. But I think this also plays into the idea of guys playing 2 ways or both ways, and you can't practice just on offense to line up and then just on defense. I think it takes away some of that ability to really focus, because a lot of teams, so on Tuesday, they'll work on their defense for the week. And then Wednesday, they'll work on their offense. And then Thursday, it's more of a walkthrough, but you don't get like a full practice session either Tuesday or Wednesday on both sides of the ball. And then come Friday night, the lights go on and you got to play. I mean, that's just what you got to do.
Right. Guys, let's look at my Bailey Pod scoreboard here real quick. You see the scores here from this past weekend. Bailey Pod scoreboard. Are we surprised, guys, at any of these games here on my board? By the winners, are we surprised that Belvedere North went over to Freeport, did what they needed to do? Guilford did what they needed to do at home.
I think Jefferson's score against Hononegah is a little bit impressive. Jefferson's been better than I thought they were going to be this year. They lost 2 really good players, and they've been playing tough.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I would say that as well. I think the Jefferson score is a little bit closer than I would have thought. Jefferson played a really tough, hard-fought game that we'll talk about here in a second. But I think from last week's games in particular, I think Freeport getting shut out surprised me the most. I thought that they would have some good opportunities to get some scores on the board. And looking at the game earlier today, like I did, Belvedere North defensively, they did a masterful job of shutting down Freeport's offense. I mean, they just did a great job. I'm actually at the end of the game, because I didn't look at the score before the game, I was actually surprised Belvedere North only scored 21 points. It seemed like they were up by quite a bit more because of the way they played defense. But I guess that score and the Jefferson score were the two big ones last week that somewhat surprised me.
Right.
Well, and the fact that East led Boylan 7-6, I think, with like 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. So that was, East was played Boylan tougher than I thought they would too.
Yeah, it was like I said, guys, it was a bunch of good games last week, and I'm not too surprised, with the Bailey Pot scoreboard, these teams that are expected to win, won last week, and I think when you see teams like Harlem play East, I think we could probably go ahead and give Harlem the nod, with games like that, but. As it relates to last weekend, looking at the Bailey Pot board, I'm not surprised at any of these winners here on my board. So, Matt?
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, they were all chalk. It was just a couple of them were a little closer than they've thought. I think it's been a really encouraging first 2 weeks with, at least from a fan's perspective. I don't know how good the teams are, but they're more closely bunched than they've been in quite a while.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Guys, I want to, before we bring in our guest tonight, because he's waiting in the guest room, we'll get him in here shortly, talk about the big showdown, Harlem and Hano this weekend. I want to talk about my list this week. Got some guys on the board here that made my list. Here's the Bailey Pod top performers of week 2. And guys, I'm just going to just read some of these stats real quick with these guys that actually made the board. Congratulations to these guys that made the Bailey Pod again. A couple of these guys made it last week, but I'm just going to go ahead and illuminate these guys here that performed at a really high level over the weekend. Grayson Weber, Guilford, 9 of 15, 150 in the air, 2 TDs. He had 1 INT in their victory over Belvedere. Jackson Cook had a phenomenal game. He's been just stellar these last 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure Coach over there at Harlem, Coach Morrow, is sleeping well at night knowing he's got that young man, number 11, on his team playing on both sides of the ball. Harlem, he caught 4 passes for 160 and 2 TDs. Congrats to you. Jaden Williams, it was good to see him make the list. I was wondering when he was going to come out of his shell and have a really big game as he did against Hononegah. Even though they came up with a loss, he was 17 for 27 and 207 and 2 TDs. Congrats to him. Jarrett Quest, young man I just highlighted in my take with East and Boylan. He played a phenomenal game. I don't know if you guys seen him run. Really, really good build, low center. Just really gets to the second level and just, he's hard to come down. He's hard to bring down. A lot of guys, a lot of his runs came second effort, where he would get to the second level and guys would come up, try to tackle him. They just bounce off of him. So he did well. His stats on the night were 118 on the ground, 20 carries, 1 TD in their big loss to Boylan. Tyler Banker, Hononegah, he had a phenomenal game. Banker for Hononegah, 145 rushing, 23 carries in their big victory over Jefferson. Leroy McClellan of Harlem. I'm pretty sure Coach is very excited to have him on their team this year. This kid transferred from East over to Harlem this year. LeBron McClellan, he caught 3 passes for 70 yards and had 1 INT on defense with their big victory over Auburn. Mike Townsend, Jefferson. Here's a young man, guys, I think we could be talking about each and every week if he and the quarterback over there, Williams, can find their connection. I think this young man here is a really, really special talent. He had a really good night, 11 catches for 150 and 1 TD. Those types of stats. I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen those type of receiving stats in quite some time in the Nick 10.
Yeah, I would say
So
from the
congrats.
East program for sure. I'm not sure the last time they had a receiver as talented as him. He runs good routes, creates good space, and when Williams gets time, he can get the ball to him. It's a matter of can that offensive line continue to give him time. But they definitely have a good connection there. And I know I was at the game last Friday night, and I was really impressed with their connection that they had. And it wasn't so much they did a lot of hand motioning as well, which you don't see a lot of times on the high school level of just maybe, hey, I'm gonna run my route maybe a yard short, or hey, I'm gonna change my route and do this. I don't know their offense well enough to understand that, but they had some hand motions that I assume meant that Townsend was going to run a different type of route. You don't always see that on the high school level.
Yeah, he's going to be a treat. Again, like you say, if he and Williams can get that connection, I think they have chemistry. We're not saying that they don't have chemistry, but if they can connect like they did, I mean, I don't know how many times he was targeted, but caught 11 balls. That's a really good night at the office, even though they would probably would rather have the victory, opposed to having him have so many catches. But again, what a great individual night by him, and also to Williams. So, guys, let's go ahead. Let's give those guys a round of applause. Again, I'll be highlighting athletes each and every week here on the Bailey Pod. It's a performance-based feat. We don't give out awards like this on the Bailey Pod to guys who don't perform. So big congrats. I want to give you guys a big round of applause for making the Bailey Pod list in week 2. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and continue to move through the show. As I stated earlier, we got Coach waiting on us. I just want to talk a little bit about, this matchup, coming up here in the next 72 hours. You got really 2 good teams, 2-0. Guys, I think it's going to be a showdown, as you see in my title here, the Nick 10 showdown. Harlem 2-0, Hononegah 2-0. Guys, speak to that. Let's start with you, Harold. What are your thoughts going into this game, knowing that these 2 teams are really well coached, A, B, really phenomenal players, and then C, both programs are coming in at 2-0?
Well, I can speak because I'm pretty close to the Honolulu program. I would say that Hononegah respects probably the Harlem program, if not as much as any program. It's right there with maybe North. I mean, they respect the entire program over there. They understand it's going to be a dogfight. 7 out of the last 10 have been 5 points or fewer. Last year's game maybe wasn't so close, but it's a battle. Since 1982, these teams have been going at it, and guess what? It's been a battle each and every time that they step on the field. And Friday night, Harlem has so many talented speed players, and they're big on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They got 8 or 9 guys that weigh 240 plus. I mean, Hononegah's, they got their handful. They're not as explosive as Harlem. Harlem's got a great offensive coach and a coach overall, Coach Morrow, and he's been around the Nick 10 a long time. He understands how to play in this contest. I'm excited for it. It's a big showdown. I know the Belvedere North Guilford game was big, and last week's Freeport North game was big, but I'd have to say this is the biggest game so far in the conference. Both teams 2-0 coming in, and really the winner of this, I don't want to say as an inside shot, but they ain't got a pretty good shot at running off a long win streak here.
Yeah, I still put North as the team to beat, though. Harlem might have moved up to second to me, so we'll see how they go. I think this game would be a better game in a few weeks than it is now. I don't know if Shockley's going to be back this week for Hononegah. I think it's a little hard to figure out how good Hononegah's is because they haven't had their starting quarterback yet. And then Harlem, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I just heard, word on the street is that Harlem's got that transfer running back who hasn't played yet. I heard he's going to be eligible in week 4, but he's not, so he won't play this week.
Yeah, I heard the same sort of thing earlier in the season that around week 4 or 5 he'd be eligible, and if they get him to go with Cook and Broom and the rest of that team, I mean, they're going to be a juggernaut. And I guess North is still, has the inside track because they beat Guilford, but this Harlem team, they're really good. They're explosive. They play really good defense. They got 2 stud corners. They got 2 or 3 stud wide receivers. Their young sophomore quarterback is playing really well. He's averaging 260, I think, a game. And the last few years, Harlem has had a stud running back, and now they're changing from having just a stud running back to having an extremely versatile, explosive offense. And I just think it's going to be really a tough game on Friday night for Hononegah because they are not the fleetest of foot, and that's for sure. And with Harlem's size, I also think that's going to be a problem on Friday night.
Right. Yeah.
Well, here's my question.
Go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Here's my question with Harlem, particularly with Belvedere North, and to some extent the same thing with Hononegah, is like you said, Harlem's got this great offense. Their defense, you've got 2 really good corners in McClellan and Jackson Cook, but North doesn't throw the ball. and Hononegah, if they do things right, they're not going to throw the ball that much either. So I think of all the different things that Harlem's good at, their very, very best thing they might have and go for them is 2 ball hawking cornerbacks. But I don't know if that's going to help them in their 2 biggest games in the Nick 10 because they probably won't see many passes.
Yeah. So Matt, to follow up on that point, so they have enough size to, I think, withstand North and Hononegah and anybody else in the conference, really. As I mentioned, they got 16 guys of 230 pounds plus. Now, size is what size is. They also have good feet and good movement. So if you combine those 2 things, you're going to be able to move defenders, and as the defender, you're going to be able to move guys and chase the football. And they have some good linebackers.
I think one of the big things with Hononegah, I think where they'll probably have a little trouble is keeping up the tempo with Harlem. I think Harlem runs a good tempo. They have the speed. Obviously, they have the speed. Broom's back. Cookie is probably one of the more faster, legitimate speed guys in the league. This quarterback is playing lights out over the last couple of weeks as a sophomore. Yes, we've probably seen sophomores before play at this level, but I think with Harlem's speed and their expertise that they have at these skill positions, I think Harlem's going to actually come out and really, really, surprise Hononegah and take it all 4 quarters. I don't think this is going to be a game that we're going to see a lopsided game. I think it's going to be a well-fought game. And I think, we're going to see 2 great coaches that are going to really have to coach all 4 quarters on Friday night.
Yeah, and this is the biggest game.
Yeah, going back to what Harold said is, I would pick Harlem to win this game. I'm not saying that Harlem can't do it. I think Harlem's got a really good all-around team. I'm just saying,
Absolutely.
like it's like when the Cowboys when they hit on Sanders. I don't want to play. I want to play a team that's got a star receiver that I can put Dion on. It's like when Dion took Jerry Rice, man to man. I don't want to play a team that doesn't even throw the ball, and I don't get to use Jackson Cook, and he's a great receiver, but as a defensive back, he's as special as I've ever seen in this conference, and I don't want to. So that's all I was saying is I like the way North matches up against Harlem, and to some extent, I think Harlem's a better team, but I kind of like how the matchups go. I think that the matchup of styles favors Hononegah slightly. Is all I was saying.
Right. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a well-fought game. Guys, go ahead.
Neither one, either Harlem. Really, I mean, great.
You got a bad Harold. You got a bad connection.
It's just early in the season, but early in the season, and kind of the scores for both Hononegah and Harlem. They played, the toughest teams. They played probably 2 teams in the lower half of the Nick 10. This is the test for both teams, and just looking at pure size and talent, I think Harlem, they have some pieces that they're going to be able to get maybe a 60-yard run where
Yeah, not sure what happened. He had a bad connection with us. Sorry, viewers. He had a bad connection. He must have had some type of hot wire get hit. We're going to go ahead. Matt, you're with me still?
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully he can
Okay.
just sign in
Yep.
again
Yep.
and work this
Yeah,
time.
hopefully. Yep. Yep. Hopefully he can get back with us. But we're going to go ahead and just move through the show. Our
Sure.
guest is waiting. Coach Morrow is waiting on us right now. We're going to go ahead and bring in the great Coach Morrow. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Good. Good to see you.
Hey,
Good
Coach.
to see you. Coach,
Hey, man.
congrats on these last 2 weeks over there at Husky Land. I know you guys are excited, rolling right now at 2-0. You got a big showdown this weekend over at Hononegah. Coach, talk to us a little bit about some of the success that you guys have had over the last 2 weeks, and talk to me a little bit about your preparation for this big showdown coming up against the Hononegah Indians.
This last 2 weeks, we've played pretty well defensively. We put a really big emphasis on tackling. We thought we were a little, just a little non-fundamentally sound going last year throughout the year. So in the summer in our camps and in doubles, we really put an emphasis on the tackling, and I think that's showing up a little bit in our defensive efforts. And we really prioritize the ball as the program. We're taking great care of the ball. We've lost, 2 possessions, one on a kickoff return that we didn't really soundly recover. The opener against Auburn last week, we didn't really have the possession to fumble it, but and the second one came pretty late in the game. So we got to continue to do that. And those things win a lot of football games when you protect the ball and you tackle well. You got 2 pretty large things going for you, so we hope to continue doing that.
Coach, your first couple wins, you got them underneath your belt. You go Belvedere, you beat Belvedere impressively, and then you beat Auburn last week impressively. Now you get into the thick of the conference. You haven't seen the Hononegahs yet. You'll see them this Friday night with the big showdown. You haven't seen Belvedere North yet. You haven't seen the Boylans yet. How do you feel right now based on, those 2 programs that you played are now sitting at 0-2? How do you think they've helped you guys prepare for a really good team that you're going to face on Friday night in Hononegah?
Well, I kind of agree with what Matt said earlier about these scores are not, they're not blowouts. They're not 40-point running clocks. When I left the conference for a brief time 5 years ago, there wasn't a lot of games that finished this closely. The better teams would kind of have things in order, mostly by the second quarter. These teams are competitive, and you really got to bring your best. And so I think, having done that and having succeeded and coming out with victories and actually playing well, I think it bodes well for us. If you were to kind of compare, how we competed against Hononegah versus how we competed against Auburn and versus how Hononegah competed against Auburn. I mean, maybe you could take something from that, but I think Auburn was a much improved team going into the second week, and they've cleaned up a lot of things. So, I just don't know. It's just going to be an entertaining matchup. And I agree a lot with Matt's analysis in regards to, their strengths versus our strengths. Their strength has been running the football. They had way too much success pounding it down our throat last year. So if they can do that again, our corners aren't going to be much of a factor. But if we can put them into predictable passing situations, get them behind schedule, having to throw for the sticks a little bit, then we can let those guys do their thing.
Coach, let's talk a little bit about some of your playmakers. You got some special, you got another group of special talents over there. I know Matt had mentioned earlier in the show, he alluded to that you guys had a transfer, I believe, a running back that's scheduled to suit up this weekend against Hononegah. Is that accurate? Can you speak to us a little bit about that?
No, I
Or would you
cannot.
rather not? Okay. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. We can move on. Let's talk a little bit about your playmakers. You got some playmakers over there in Cook, in Broome. They're back, and you got this hot quarterback Fawcett running the show over there at quarterback. How impressed are you right now with the sophomore, what he's been able to do over the last 2 weeks?
I'm very impressed. I had concerns even going back to last year, knowing what our quarterback situation would be if his maturity was going to be to where we needed it to be in order to be the guy for this year. And I came into camp with no pretenses, nothing was promised. He had to earn it. We weren't sure how the quarterback position was going to work out, and it ended up where he came out on top, and we kind of let that play out for the longest time. So he was kind of taking reps with JV, coming in, during practice, coming back to our segments, taking reps. And, he handled the whole thing in a very respectable way. And, he just reassures me more and more every day as to how he carries himself, that he's the right choice. He's a great teammate. And he's probably his own toughest critic in regards to making bad reads and stuff. You don't really have to really say much to him. He knows what he did, and he tells you what he did the minute after he does it, and he goes and corrects it the next time. And if he asks great questions, and he's always in the front row in our meetings taking notes. And I got to say, he earned it, and he's really doing a great job with it at the moment. And I think the sky's the limit for him.
How does that work when you got a young quarterback such as Fawcett, running that offense right now, but you have other leaders in Broome and in Cook. How do they rally around him to ensure that he's progressing week in and week out, and he's keeping that confidence up as a quarterback should, to be able to go out and be that leader of that offense, that heartbeat, so to speak. How are those two been with him in bringing him along with this progression here?
Well, one of our, the most important thing we ask our kids to do, the number one absolute non-negotiable, is to be a good teammate. And none of these guys are really threatened by each other. And it's so competitive on our team. We got so many talented players, but they're all good teammates for each other, and they support each other. We kind of make the analogy of the crab bucket. If you've ever seen Deadliest Catch, they put all those crabs in the bucket and they're all pulling each other down. Whereas if they didn't do that, they could all get out.
Right.
But this not these guys. They've got each other's backs. They support each other, but they're competing because I've never really been on a team in the skill positions, especially that number one is not really all that much better than number two. And in regards to Fawcett and how they're encouraging him and things like, they treat him like an equal. They don't treat him like the only sophomore we carry on our roster. That's for sure. And when our sophomores, Fawcett does a lot to help his own case, because the way he carries himself, like our JV will be responsible for putting away pads a certain night a week in practice, and he will go over and he will do it on his night to do it with the other JV kids. He doesn't see himself as to be any exception. He's just another member of the team, another member of the program.
Right.
And these guys, I could say, well, they really pick him up when he's down, but he's not been down. He's been on fire. So,
right.
They just have a lot of confidence and faith in him. And, it's been great to see him come along and do what he's doing with the opportunity.
How much of his success right now do you credit to his offensive line in front of him? It looks like he's been staying upright. Haven't seen him on the ground a lot. Haven't seen him being flushed out of the pocket as well. Talk to us a little bit about your offensive line and how they're actually important to his process in progressing and becoming this really good quarterback, as you're discussing right now.
The offensive line is stout, and we had a lot of, we brought a couple sophomores that had started for us last year that are juniors now. that are still playing in those positions. So that certainly helps. But we do have some new faces. One that didn't stay on the offensive line, that moved to defensive line, that's having a heck of a year, is Noah Crandall. He's coming like a screaming, like his hair is on fire around the edge all the time. So we put him defensively, but like Logan Hackler, he's playing our strong tackle. He's only a junior. He played all last year for us, made great strides. And he's kind of the guy that, I think has got to be our best, most solid offensive lineman, because our strong side run game kind of goes through him. And he's got to be, he's a good pass protector as well. We've got Paul Wyman, who's playing our quick tackle, another junior. He was just a JV kid last year, got stronger and got better in the offseason. Our quick guard right now is kind of going back and forth between two players, Gage Stuckey, who didn't really play last year, but he's a senior. He's come out this year. He's strong as heck. I think he deadlifts 400 pounds. He's a load. And then we have another transfer from Miami, Florida, Jacob Ortiz, who's kind of also competing in that spot and doing a heck of a job. Our centers are our only senior on the line, or one of our only seniors on the line. Gabe Smith is a returner from last year. And, when you're shotgunning snaps, and they all got to be kind of perfect, and he's been able to do that for us. And then our strong guard that plays next to Hackler, Tyson Hill, he's an extraordinary athlete. He's over 300 pounds and moves well. He's kind of a state qualifier in the shot put and discus. He and Logan really give us that strong side push we need to help get our ground game going. So can't say enough about these guys. They are keeping Braxton clean, but we're also kind of designing things to get the ball out of Braxton's hands in a hurry, so that he doesn't have to hold on to it. And
right,
he's making quick reads here and there, and we really stress about just getting rid of the ball. So he's doing a great job with it.
Coach, let's go to defense
Coach,
for a second. Go ahead, Matt.
Hey,
Go
Coach,
ahead.
you mentioned you had a transfer from Miami, and then I know you had a transfer coming in from Oak Park Richards. I was wondering if you talk about it. Do you think it's the Harlem School District, or just McChesney Park in where people like to live, or some of your football team? You got to have something going on with that school. When people move to Rockford, that some people are moving not just to Rockford, but they're picking your school.
I just got to say, it's probably just blessings from above, because I don't think these guys have any particular reason to end up at Harlem, other than their families live here, or wherever they're relocating is, they've got their mom and or dad, or whatever their living situation is. So I don't know.
Well, right. I mean, they're not moving that far to play football for Harlem, but I didn't know if you think it's maybe the taxes up there, or people just like your school, that they picked that one out of the 5 or 6 schools that they could go to.
Well, I think we do a pretty good job of creating a very appealing front porch, and having just good facilities, good administration. I think our educators within the building are really good and outstanding, and it doesn't help that the football program wins year after year. So I think all that probably does go into it. If we were kind of at the bottom of the conference in wins, I mean, we probably don't get too many kids interested, and they probably find other ways to kind of navigate around Harlem, but that's not the case, and we are blessed to have these guys.
Coach, let's talk about your defense here for a second. I know you guys have only given up, it looks here, you guys have only given up 9 points here in the last couple of weeks. Talk to us a little bit about, your defense. What right now, what would be the heart and soul of your defense right now? Is it your linebacker play? You're getting good play there. Is it your guys on the perimeters, your corners, your secondary? Speak to us a little bit about, how well are you guys are performing right now at the defensive spot?
Yeah, we're returning two linebackers that started for us last year, and I think they both had close to 100 tackles. Brennan Brixon, number 9, Briar Craig, number 33, and those guys, they kind of hold it down for us. They know all the little adjustments. They recognize offensive formations and help put everybody in the positions we need them to be. Our defensive line is pretty legit. We kind of had a deep rotation of guys that we use there, but for the most part, we don't really have our offensive line play defensive line. So, you did talk about how big we are, and that's one of the things that I think really helps us is those guys don't get worn down as the game goes on. They're able to stay fresh and come out and play hard. And of course, we've got the 2 outstanding corners, Jackson Cook and LeBron McClellan. There's 2 as good as I've ever seen. And then we've added a pretty significant piece. Micah Everett has moved from corner to free safety, and he's enjoying a lot of success. He had a pick in week 1, and he's really coming down hard and filling the alleys from his free safety spot in the run game. And this is about having good pieces to place on the field. Our outside linebackers are, I think, are getting better week to week, and that's another really competitive spot. And I think we're going to have some surprising guys show up and really make an impact for us in that spot. But it's just good personnel, and they make our offensive line better as well. I mean, we go good against good every day, and I think it's really, showing up, both sides of the football.
Right.
Coach, I know you've been a long time educator, in the Rockford area. I'm wondering, so your loss last year in the playoffs to 7A champion Chicago Mount Carmel, did you guys as a program or you as a coaching staff learn anything from that and kind of either change or add to your program at all during the off season?
It did make us kind of take some notes from them. We kind of we did a lot of observing. We were just amazed at how detail oriented their coaches were. They knew if a certain player of ours was going onto the field, they kind of knew what couple plays to expect. I mean, they had it down to such a science. Like they were just amazing in the amount of preparation and the depth of which they went into. So that kind of caught me off guard and kind of gave us something to think about and shoot for this year as far as our preparation. And just getting to go against one of the top programs in the nation. I mean, it's just a valuable learning experience. And I felt like we kind of hung in there for a bit. It got away from us eventually, but we made them sustain some drives. We intercepted the quarterback. We intercepted the quarterback that got a full ride to Vandy, and it's going to be a pretty special player for them. And we did some really good things that kind of give us a little bit of hope to maybe we can up our game here, knowing what true competition is. Knowing that that's the elite of the elite, and maybe we can get a little bit closer to that. And if we can do that, we're going to have some pretty good runs ourselves. And I was just very impressed with everything they did, and the head coach after made me feel pretty good. The head coach after the football game, he just mentioned that we were a class act, and he really enjoyed bringing his team over here, and he just had a lot of complimentary things to say. So we're going to build on that and use the kind of stuff to get better.
Sure. Coach, I know you're back year 2. You're back in the driver's seat with year 2 with the Huskies. How is this year so much more different from last year? I know you didn't get a full year with the kids. You were hired kind of late, Speak to me a little bit about where you are now as a coach compared to last year at this time.
As a coach, I feel comfortable in the seat that I'm sitting in. Last year it took me a while to kind of feel comfortable, as though the kids understood me and viewed me as the head coach rather than the guy who just took the place of the other guy. So,
Right.
uh, and we finally got the buy-in we needed, and we did pretty well down the stretch. They bought in, and we did some amazing things. And I think from that moment on, we just kind of continued to build that momentum. I'd have to say, like, it's a lot different this year, and we really do know our roster much better than we walked into last year. Like last year, every coach was a new coach. From the entire staff was kind of new to everybody, so you can imagine
Right.
the kids not having any familiar faces from the year before, and just getting to know each other, and our coaches getting to know each other. We had to build that dynamic. And this year, it's gone very well. And last year, we were kind of doing some things, not knowing what we have skill wise that really wasn't a good fit. So we ended up changing as the year got on and adapting. And we ended up spreading out a little bit. But we had a guy named Jamani Muhammad that he makes transitions like this a little easier.
That guy.
But we knew whatever we were doing, if he were to touch the
Right.
ball 20 times a game, we were going to be okay. And so we never lost sight of that.
Right.
And then going into this year, I just felt like we need to be a little bit more harder to defend. Like what makes North is nobody else really runs that offense, and
Right.
you have to come up with sort of like a 1-week game plan and try to implement it and be good at it by the time you play them. I kind of wanted to follow in that, but I didn't really want to be under center all the time. And we have such good athletes. We need to, be able to get the ball to them, not just off play
Play to their
action
strengths.
stuff
Right.
and booting out and things of that nature. So we really
Play to their strengths.
Yeah, we went
Play
to
to their
work in the
strengths. Yep.
off-season. We went to work in the off season and got a lot of good stuff from a lot of good people. And here we are. We'll see if it holds up against a good team like Hononegah for sure.
Coach, again, 2-0. Big showdown Friday night. The mentality in practice this week. I know sometimes as teenagers can sometimes get off track, so to speak. But where is your team right now mentally, knowing that, okay, we're 2-0. We're going to face a really good opponent Friday night. How has the mentality been this week in practice all week? Can you speak to that?
They understand the urgency of the moment. And we physically got after it more so than we have it all previous to this. We're banging each other pretty good, and we came out of it healthy tonight. So we're in great shape, but we're ready for a physical contest. We'll ease off in the next practice, but we'll be ready. I'm amazed at all the little things that we've added to the game plan have been gone out there and gone pretty clean as far as our install, and that's always a good sign. They feel very comfortable with things, and I want them to be able to play fast, and I think they're in a position to do that.
Sure. Coach, I just want to illuminate. Go ahead. Oh, I was going to illuminate play. Go ahead. Go for it.
Going into this game, since the level of competition that you played in the conference, you need to take it up a couple notches. And you know that because you've been in this rivalry game quite a few times. If you talk to maybe some of the kids who haven't played in this rivalry about that feeling, because it's going to feel different than it did last week and that it did the first week. You have a lot of kids on your team that have played in, Nick 10 games, but maybe not a lot of kids that have played in this rivalry per se, because it is one of the biggest ones in the conference.
Yeah, to be honest, we haven't really built that up I don't know. I think it creates a little bit of anxiety when you do that. I just want them to go out and play their football game. They're well aware of how important this is. And I don't, without me having to reiterate it and everything else. So I just let it kind of organically progress throughout the week. And I think they're going to be in a good headspace and a good place physically here as we, kick off on Friday. So I don't think a lot of words need to be said. I mean, this game is the kind of game that, you always dream of playing when you're in high school. You got your rival down the road. You're both 2-0. All eyes are on it. Anybody who cares about football is probably going to be there, and it's going to be raucous for sure. And they know all that. They're fully aware of it, and I don't need to bring any more attention to it. Let's just focus on us. Focus on what we need to do to be successful, and that's how we're going to go approach it.
I like it. I like the approach, Coach. Coach, hey, we're gonna get moving here. We appreciate you stopping and having some conversation with us here on the Bailey Pod. Good luck this weekend. Good luck the rest of the way. We'll get you back here on the Bailey Pod here, I'm sure, down the road again here in the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. So again, good luck this weekend. We appreciate you. Coach Morrow, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Congratulations, Matt.
Yeah, Coach. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, Coach Morrow's a really, really great guy. He, he speaks it, and I think with him being back over there at Harlem now, again getting that full year that he didn't get last year underneath his belt. I think he seems really, really comfortable. He seems a little bit more comfortable this time of the year than he did last year when I had him on the Bailey Pod. So I'm pretty sure that year that he's had with those kids and having only his hands, so to speak, on the program has actually done some things for him mentally tremendously, and the other coaches on the staff. So I think it's going to be a well-fought game. I think Harlem's going to come in. And again, like I alluded to earlier, Harlem has really good speed on offense and defense. There's no question they have probably two of the best premier corners in our league. Quarterback seems to be playing very well. But it's going to be interesting to see how he plays now. Now they're getting into the actual, the meats and potatoes, so to speak, of the conference, because they still have to play the Boylans, they still have to play the Belvedere Norths, and now obviously they'll be going on the road Friday night up there and playing Hononegah. So it's going to be interesting to see how he responds to a better team and tougher competition on Friday night.
Yeah, that's kind of that's what I was asking Coach about, if he's talked to the young, especially the young quarterback. He's not played in this rivalry, but if they obviously have confidence in him, and they understand where he's at, and he's got a good group of teammates around him. I'm sure that kids are a lot more, I think, mature football-wise than maybe they were previously, especially with social media. They understand that the ramifications. They can look at the standing just like the three of us can. They understand it's a big game. It puts them in a great position to move forward. But it definitely will be a different environment than they played in so far this season. I do think that loss in the playoffs, I think that long term for the program, I really do think that's going to help them to just understand when you get to see greatness, it can only help you, no matter what the outcome is. It can only help you if you see the way they do something and you just take bits and pieces and bring it into your program, or you as a player, even if you take bits and pieces from the way that someone acts or the way someone runs or the way they run, when you look at it, on film, it can only help you. And I'm sure that's what Coach Morrow and staff is doing.
And Harold, what you're saying is very compelling. I mean, I think those kids got a taste of what it means and what it looks like to be, nationally known, so to speak, in Mark Carmel. And I think, they got a taste of it. And I think those kids who are back this year, like the Brooms and the Cooks, I think, they're gonna play with the attitude this year. They're already kind of playing with an attitude now. I think they're gonna play with an attitude. I think, when you play against that tough, that stiff competition, and sometimes you got to go outside your conference to play it, obviously. But it does something to you as an athlete, to where you're in a conference and you see some cupcake teams. Just gonna be honest, you see some cupcake teams sometimes week in and week out, and then you make it to the playoffs, and these teams are totally different teams that you're accustomed to seeing week in and week out in your actual division. So, the idea is to, get a taste of that, turn it around, and then you come back as a senior, and you actually come back a different kid than you were your junior year, or you come back a different kid than you were your sophomore year. So, there's really only pros to that. I don't think there's any cons to that. I think every athlete wants to be great. Every athlete wants to be, playing on Saturday afternoons in some college program. And the only way they're going to be able to do that, they have to be able to show scouts, that, hey, look, we can play with the big boys too in Mark Carmel, And, I think Harlem is going to be a team probably here in the next 6 or 7 weeks that we're going to continue to talk about. I can see Harlem, if they get past Hononegah this weekend, I can see them, I don't want to say it, but I can see them really in a good spot, come week 9.
Oh yeah, sure. Whoever wins this game could win the conference. I'm not saying they'll be the favorite, but whoever wins this game has a pretty decent shot at at winning the conference.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that the winner of this game, it's going to come down to probably a showdown between them and Belvedere North for the conference champion. Just looking at the schedule and not predicting anything, but I guess predicting somewhat. But that's what it's going to come down to. Winner of this against the winner of the Belvedere North is probably going to be the conference champion. Yeah. There are lots of games between now and then, and injuries can happen and things can occur, but it surely looks that way on paper.
Harold, your prognostication is spot on. I think you're spot on with it. If you look at the schedule moving forward, I think, some of the teams that we're discussing right now, the Belvedere Norths, the Harlems, you look and see what they have left on their schedule. I think this game here, this Harlem and Hononegah game coming up, I think this is probably thus far in the last 2-3 weeks, this is the biggest game of the year. Right up there with Guilford and Belvedere North. That was a great game, but I think, second is definitely this game right here, as it relates to, 2 premier teams in our league going head to head undefeated, and it's usually been like that.
If I was in Las Vegas, because I think the odds are that the winner of this game and then whoever plays Belvedere North as the winner of this game, that'll be quote unquote for the conference title. But if I was in Vegas, I would play the parlay at, I'd probably get decent odds on it, but I'd play that we'd have 4 8-1 teams in the conference, because I think Guilford is a pretty solid team too, and it really would not shock me if we have a 2 or 3 or even a 4-way tie for the conference title this year.
I can see that, Matt. I could see that happening. It's happened before, so I can see it, that happening. But I'm just looking at the teams that aren't really performing well right now. Your Auburns, your Jeffersons. Your I won't even say Freeport, because Freeport did beat well, and they're sitting at 1-1 right now. Your East. Those teams there. I don't think it's really safe to say that they're probably going to be sitting on the bottom, so to speak, in the next 8 to 9 weeks. Particularly if they're good coach and they're able to clean some things up and stay in some games and just really come out and just play. I think. Well,
I think Boylan.
But like you stated, Matt,
and they could beat somebody, and Boylan could beat somebody. But I guess what I'm saying is, don't count out Guilford. Their quarterback has really been throwing well, and they've got those 2, a Big Ten recruit and an SEC recruit playing both ways.
I don't think any of us are saying let's throw Guilford out. Guilford's going to be in the mix again. Hononegah, Guilford. Just like we said 3 or 4 weeks ago on the show, we named who were going to be the top 10s in the actual conference, and I think right now it's kind of proof in the pudding. To be honest with you, I know there's a ton of weeks left in the season. I don't want to get too far ahead, because anything can happen on any given Friday night. But as it relates to those teams, those marquee teams that are in our conference, I think those teams there are going to continue to play well. And there's going to be really great matchups when those teams go head to head, like we're going to see Friday night, Harlem, Hano. Those are the games that we really, truly want to see and come back here on the Bailey Pod and have some good conversation and talk about big games like that. No disrespect to the other teams that are struggling right now. We'll have those kids. We'll highlight those teams too. But I think from a sports perspective and from a podcast perspective that's based around sports, I think this is the type of these conversations that you want to have. Harlem, Hononegah, Belvedere North.
Sure.
Right. Those are the teams. Those are the teams that are actually winning in our conference right now, and we have to highlight them.
Well, no, we are highlighting them, and we're particularly highlighting Harlem this week because they had been slightly overlooked, I think, by me anyway, in the preseason. I didn't know anything about this sophomore quarterback who we'd never seen any before. And I didn't know that they're going to put Jackson Cook, who is so great on defense, is going to be just as good on offense this year. And I didn't know that McClellan had transferred over there. I'm just saying is that, by elevating Harlem, which is it deserves, let's not overlook who we already had near the top in Guilford. And then I also think Freeport's been a little bit better than I thought. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Guys, a lot of football left. We're prognosticating here. We're just giving our analysis, but it's a lot of football left. But again, but as it pertains to these teams that are right now that are, 2-0, that are actually going out week in and week out and performing very well, I think those are those teams that we're going to be talking about here in the next 8 or 9 weeks. My opinion.
Yeah. I reiterate everything you guys say. Matt, I did want to let you know, I think that you can take a red eye now from Rockford to Vegas and turn around and come back the next day if you want to. If you need me to, I'll Venmo you $50 to lay down. The IHS, they wouldn't like it, but we can discuss that sidebar with no video proof. But no, I agree. Guilford, though, so far this season, I'm a little concerned by them. They're just something amiss. They're just something not there. They're not playing as well as I thought they would play to begin the season. Maybe there's still the hangover from the North loss. But I
think it's their running game.
Be a big game for them.
I think also too, guys. I'm going to give you my perspective as from a player, a coach, a person who's now in sports media as well. But when you play a sport, and all you guys, I'm pretty sure play the sport. But when you play a sport, it's really hard to get up for teams in your league that aren't really playing up to snuff, so to speak. But when you go out and you're playing against teams that are equivalent as a program as you are, you rise, your game goes up a few notches. And I think that's pretty much what we're seeing with Guilford. I don't think that was a great performance last week against Belvedere. I really don't. And I think they would probably agree with me over there. But I think when Guilford plays the Boylans, they play the Hononegahs, they play the Harlems, I think we're going to be saying something different, guys. I really do. I think Guilford's a good team. I really do. They got a bevy of playmakers on both sides of the ball. They're well coached. They got great coaches on the staff. I think last week was just a poor performance because I think those guys, I think they kind of took Belvedere lightly. I'll be honest with you. I think they did. I think they took Belvedere a little light because Belvedere looked pretty good, and they were actually hanging around for a little bit in that game against Guilford. Because I thought Guilford should win that game by a landslide based on what they have.
Yeah, I just think Guilford hasn't.
Go ahead, Matt.
Go ahead, Harold.
Oh, I was just going to say, I agree with what you said there. When you have, a divide in the conference, I know Coach Morrow talked about, when he left before, there were larger score disparities than there is now. But I just think we know that there's a top 5 in the conference and a bottom 5. That's just kind of the way it is. And we're going to see that. I think we saw that probably a couple of early, games in the season for Harlem and Hononegah against some of those teams. I think we probably expected those scores to be a little bit bigger than what they were. Is it because the other teams played better, or is it because maybe both of Harlem and Hononegah knew, hey, we didn't need to play our A game to win this football game? So this is the first big challenge for both teams. I think it's going to be the stepping stone for the winner, and then loser of this, depending on who that is, if it's Hononegah, they play Guilford, so they got another big one coming up. And Harlem, I know I saw their schedule earlier today. I can't remember who they follow up with, but this is really the start of the season for these two programs. North and Guilford, their season started their gauntlet, but really for Hononegah and Harlem, this is their gauntlet for the season. So,
yeah, because if you look at it, guys, I mean, you go back and you look at Hononegah had week 1. Who did Hononegah have week 1? They had
Auburn.
They had Auburn week 1. Week 2, they go who? Jefferson. Look at Harlem. Who they go week 1?
They go reverse.
Who did Harlem? Harlem week 1 played Belvedere.
Oh yeah, that's right. Belvedere.
Played Belvedere. Yep. Week two, who they play?
Auburn. Yep.
Now, my point that I'm trying to make is, what's the record right now of both of those teams? All 4 teams I mentioned.
Yeah.
Were they 0-4?
They haven't won, and Harlem and Hononegah haven't lost. Yeah.
They haven't won a game. So my point is that, I think the true test, Matt, and you just alluded to it, Hononegah and Harlem, that true test will be Friday night. That true test will be Friday night. They just haven't been tested yet, So we're going to be able to see how good this quarterback is from Harlem. We're going to be able to see how good these playmakers are on both sides of the ball with these teams, because I just alluded to a second ago, when players know that they're playing someone equivalent or maybe a couple notches better than them, they rise to the occasion. Some, not all, some do, some don't. But playmakers.
Well, and I'm going to throw out this, and this is both, from Grayson Weber from Guilford and Harlem with Fawcett. And I think those are both really good quarterbacks, but it's a little bit like playing quarterback for the Ravens right now, where I know Lamar Jackson is a great, great quarterback, but they've got players around him that they can make it look easy. How do you defend Lamar Jackson when you've got Derrick Henry in the backfield and you got Zay Flowers and you got a great offensive line? Harlem's got so many people to throw the ball to.
Can't, Matt. I can answer. Man, I can.
Right,
answer that
and so that makes it. If the quarterback is just smart and he's more than smart, he's talented. Yeah.
Matt, you can contain it, but you can't stop it.
Right.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
You can contain it, but you can't stop it. They're going to do what they do. Those the guys you just alluded to, those guys are playmakers, and that's what I think Harlem has. Harlem has playmakers. I think Harlem's going to find a way to win that game on Friday night. Hononegah is going to do the same thing. They have playmakers. We can't dismiss their playmakers that they have, So again, but my point that I'm trying to make is that, they're week 3 now, just now getting to a tougher opponent.
Oh, sure.
They haven't seen anybody in 2 weeks.
I guess the point I was making about both Harlem and Guilford is they've got some of these great playmakers, and Guilford also has Chris Porter. But they got a trigger man to get them the ball, because sometimes in our conference in high school football, you see a great player or two, but they don't have the quarterback who can get them the ball. I mean, when you have a D1 recruits and a good quarterback, that doesn't really happen in the Nick 10. And this year, I think Harlem and Belvedere North and Guilford all kind of have situations where, man, I would love to play quarterback for those 3 teams. And I'm not going to count any of them out, because, they could be like Josh Allen and the Bills. They could be down by a couple touchdowns. And that in high school football, if you're down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, the game is over. Well, on those 3 teams, I don't think the game's ever going to be over.
No, because I mean, you just like you just alluded to, man. You got playmakers on both sides of the ball. I mean, you got when you have playmakers, anything can happen when you have playmakers, as long as they execute effectively. So I think we're all saying the same thing. But it's going to be really interesting to see how this game plays out on Friday night with Hononegah and Harlem.
Yeah, and I'm glad Coach Morrow pointed out Noah Crandall for Harlem's defense. He's been a terror the last game and a half. He's got 3 sacks on the season. I think he's got 7 or 8 tackles for loss. I mean, he's a handful. Hononegah's got themselves a handful on Friday. Hononegah's got a kid that's got 5 sacks as well. So both teams. We've mentioned Harlem's offense a lot. Hononegah has some really good defensive players. But Crandall is a good football player. On Friday night, if anyone gets a chance to go watch, just watch him a couple plays and watch how hard he plays. He plays hard every single play, whistle to whistle. And that's not always something you see from a high school kid. So he should get some credit for that. And I'm glad Coach Morrow pointed that out, because he really is he's a fine football player, a very good football player in the Nick 10.
Yeah, I think if you're a high school football player in Rockford, you really got to check some Nick 10 games out this year, because it's one of the more interesting years they've had. There's talent on a wide variety of teams and some big talent out there.
Absolutely agreed, guys. Yeah, I just think, with the conference this year, you just hope that you don't see any teams go 0-9. It's just, to me, it's just not a good look for the conference. And I think we should be so far along right now as a football state. From a football state, we should be not having teams finishing 0-9. I just don't see how that happens. But we do. But I think this year, I don't think we'll see that. I think someone that finished in that bottom last year, either Auburn, Jefferson, or Belvedere, someone's going to win a couple games this year. I don't know who it is yet, but someone's going to win a couple games.
Well, you could be 0-9 this year and not be that bad of a team. I mean, last year, Jefferson started 0-7. I mean, they won their last two games, but they were 0-7. And I mean, they literally could have been a 4-5 team or a 5-4 team last year. I mean, they lost some tough ball games.
Yeah, Matt, I hear you, but the operative word you just mentioned was could have. So at the end of the night, it's like it's at the end of the night in the column, either you're 1-8 or you're 0-9, or you're 9-0, So I think my point that I'm trying to make is that I think we should be further along as a conference. Okay, I'm just going to take it another step further. We should be further along as a conference to where we shouldn't be seeing teams go 0-9. We shouldn't be seeing teams go 1-8. I'm just being flat out honest, guys. We shouldn't.
Yeah, that brings up
my
a point.
opinion.
Probably not talk about this episode. We should, discuss that at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Nick 10 teams only play against Nick 10 teams. My personal opinion, I hate that. I don't like that at all. I think you should go out and reach out and play other schools and other conferences. I know it's more difficult on the athletic directors. So Nick 10 athletic directors, don't get on me about this, but I just think because you can somewhat seed in the playoffs. Last year, obviously, North went a long ways. Hononegah in the past has went a long ways. Guilford, they went, a decent ways, but I do think it does help the conference overall improve if you play other conferences. And, I guess the teams that, are down right now, it's going to be harder for them to win a game in the conference. If you already know the strengths and weaknesses of your opponents, you can take advantage of those as a coaching staff. You can game plan, and Coach Morrow talked a little bit about that. Getting his playmakers the ball, spreading the ball around. Don't have just Muhammad he was a freak. I mean, he was just a phenomenal football player.
Oh, yeah.
But they're probably better offensively this year than they were last year, even though they had the all-time leading Nick 10 rusher last year, because they get the ball around to more players, and they have a running back that is a very good player as well. Right. So I think, there's some positives and negatives of playing in the, in the same conference, but I just see it as a negative overall. And as I stated this in the preseason, I think we can all agree we don't want to see anyone go winless on the season. That's a terrible experience for not only the kids on the team, the coaching staff, the fan base, the school, everybody in the Nick 10 conference. Nobody wants.
I mean, it's very unnerving to the program, so to speak. And Matt, you asked Coach Morrow a question earlier. These kids that are transferring in, why do they want to come to Harlem? Is it because Harlem's a great school? Is it because families are moving in that area? I mean, if I'm moving in from Texas and I'm looking for my son to come into Rockford, and I'm looking for a good football school, get your academics as well, number one. But two, it's a really good football program. Some of these programs around here, guys, I'm not going to entertain the conversation. I'm not going to entertain the conversation because I have to be able to have my son go somewhere where, number one, he's going to grow. Number two, he's going to go into a great culture. And number three, they have a standard. They have a standard.
I don't, it's like I hate all these women's basketball players that all want to play for UConn. I like it. I still remember, I forget if Steve Stark, if you played against him at all, Tim, or if that was before or after, or maybe before your time, but Hononegah kid who went to Wisconsin, and he went to Wisconsin, I think the year they were 0-11, or maybe it was 1-10. And then his senior year, they went to the Rose Bowl. And I remember talking about it, and I love it how he said that, yeah, he didn't want to go to a place that already had tradition. He wanted to go to a place where he could help make the tradition. So I know what you said, that and that's how most parents go. They want to go and join a winner already, but I'll go.
You don't necessarily, Matt.
I appreciate
necessarily, right? But Matt, you don't necessarily have to be a winner already. I just want my son or my daughter to be able to go to a school, to where, athletics is appreciated. Athletics is appreciated because there's so many life lessons learned in playing athletics, and I think we all know that. But I'm not saying that parents are only looking for that athletic benefit. No, I think parents want their kids to have the best experience possible, both academically
I know.
and athletically.
Well, I know, and that was one of the reasons why I asked, Coach, because these kids aren't coming to, Rockford to play for Harlem. They're coming to Rockford and then picking a school, and Harlem's, they got nice facilities. And I did mention that a lot of people go there because the taxes are a little bit less than in Rockford, and sometimes people, Rockford. You mentioned someone moving from Texas. Well, we got brand new neighbors that just moved in from Texas, and first thing they hear is people are telling them, "Oh, you can't go to this place in Rockford, can't go to this place," and they're asking me, "I don't understand it. Rockford seems nice to me," and I said, "Rockford is good." I hate when people say that about Rockford, but real quick here about I love.
Go ahead.
I love that when Sebastian Bracious, went to Jefferson, he could have gone in, and his sister is a very good basketball player. Well, their mom went to Jefferson way back when. While Jefferson has been dead last in the conference in the All Sports Trophy forever, yet these are two people that are helping make a difference at Jefferson. And I know Sebastian's graduated, but I like Cody Kazaza as a coach, and this year we're seeing a much improved Jefferson team. So it's like, and I get it that you want to go. In the old days, when I first moved to Rockford in 1990, I kept running into everybody said, you got to go to Boylan if you want to win. You got to go to Boylan if you want to win. I say, if you're a winner, you bring winning with you.
Right. But Matt, to be honest with you, there was some truth to that.
Sure there was.
I know I'm not a Boylan guy, but there was some truth to that. My philosophy is this: it doesn't matter where you go; it's what you do when you get there. I mean, bottom line, that goes for the college levels too. It doesn't matter where you go; it's what you do when you get there. Back in the '90s, what were the hot schools to go to? Who had the winning culture? Boylan had the winning culture. And now
they get the winning culture in part because everybody believes that.
And now
the more people believe, you have to go.
And now the roles have kind of changed to where now we're seeing the Hononegahs out front. We're seeing the Belvedere Norths out front. So things have changed. So what we saw in the 90s are totally different than what we're seeing in today's age, in the modern day.
Well, and just think all the kids that transferred out of East. Think if they had those kids on the team this year, how much more competitive they would be. I mean, that's why it boggles my mind, and I don't know the whole history of the Nick 10. I'm going to tell you that. But it boggles my mind that there's not a conference rule that if you start at a high school in the conference that you have to wait to transfer to another school in the conference, because you're kind of playing into the idea of, hey, this school isn't as good as another school, and you can pretty much do whatever you want. I mean, everyone argues about, schools in the suburbs, they're recruiting kids to come and play a sport. We all know they do, but like they do have some rules in there, like, hey, you can't take a kid from Marian Catholic and bring them to XYZ school, and XYZ school can't take this kid from there. They have some rules in place. I'm just surprised the Nick 10 doesn't have anything like that. Now, I don't know if that would be a state level thing that they would have to go through that process or not. And obviously every transfer case is different. So
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if something's coming down the pike sooner than later, because we've seen a very unprecedented amount of athletes transfer, in the last 90 days.
Well,
and that
right,
that number's pretty hefty.
Yeah.
That's a big sizable number.
I think everybody goes by the state rules, and the thing there is you just and every urban, I think, area in the country pretty much has this issue, is because if you're in the suburbs, you tend to own your own house. So often in a city, you rent an apartment. Well, you can just cross over and rent an apartment a mile away, and all of a sudden you're in a different school district if you want to go there. And the other thing that Rockford has, and a lot of other schools kind of have, cities have this too, is they have different academies within each
Right.
school. And so if you said,
Right.
I want to be in this academy, I want to, whatever. And so then you can go from East to Auburn, or Auburn to East, or
Right.
whatever, just like that. And, in Rockford, the best part about it in Rockford now is that everybody has taken their turn for the most part.
Right. Yeah,
Maybe, even Jefferson's gotten a few people to transfer in. So if everybody was going to one school, if they were all transferring to Guilford or something, or if they're all transferring to Auburn, I think there'd be a lot more complaints. But since they kind of all go amongst each other and go here one year and some other place the next, no one really cares that much. But I'm with you. I don't really like it, but it's because it's kind of an even transfer thing. I don't think it's a huge problem, but it is a problem nationwide.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, guys, hey, what a great one we had tonight. Again, I think it's going to be a great one this weekend. May the best team win. And then, next week we'll do this again, fellas. I appreciate your time. Harold, appreciate you for coming on. Matt, I appreciate you coming on. Any special plans this weekend, guys? Harold, gonna be out? Any
No,
games?
I just want to ask Matt what he's doing in retirement. I mean,
I was going to play tennis and golf. I was going to play tennis and golf all day, and then my very first day, I tweaked my calf playing tennis. So it's like, so golf now, not tennis, for a couple days anyway.
Take on full court ping pong. I think it's called pickleball, is what I was told.
Oh yeah. But I'm too old for tennis.
Yes.
All right, guys. Thanks again for joining the Daily Pot tonight.
Friday, and that's what I'm doing. Going to the Harlem game on Friday.
Okay. Well, Harold, I'm sure I'll see you, Matt. I'll catch up with you soon. Again, gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for joining the Bailey Pot tonight. Enjoy your weekend.
Okay. Hey, bye.
Yeah, guys, what a great show tonight. I think, if you're not going out this weekend to a game because of, you may not want to see a certain team play, this is the game, the showdown with these two teams here, Harlem, Hononegah. This is the game that you want to see. You want to see this type of talent. I think it's going to be a treat. I think it's going to be a dandy. I think we're going to see two well-coached, two hard-nosed teams go head-to-head. And again, may the best team win. Guys, make sure you guys go follow. You go like Bailey Pod. I'll be bringing you Bailey Pod again every Thursday at 8 p.m. Every Thursday at 8 p.m. You can catch the Bailey Pod via YouTube. Guys, remember, get out, go support your teams. Just make sure, again, you stay safe, be smart this weekend. There's a lot going on in the world today. Love on your loved ones, and just understand that, we're all here on this earth trying to make an impact, trying to make positive things happen. So again, guys, I want to appreciate you guys for joining the Bailey Pod. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good weekend.
Bye.